Takara Tomy's Dramatic Capture Series Triple Takeover 3-pack is the third installment in their DCS Subline, which I have been collecting since the beginning. Even though I had a less than stellar reaction to the Nemesis Bridge pack, I decided to keep on going just because I really liked the colour schemes that they were giving the figures, and I think they finally hit the apex of what they're going for here. You know, their Beast Wars Versus line always had a pretty consistent aesthetic of just make it much more like the cartoon, but this, they couldn't seem to tell if they were going for premium shiny decos or super cartoon accurate ones like we got with Optimus. Sometimes that was within the same pack, but this time, I think they've really nailed the aesthetic they're going for. So, let's take a look at them. When I ordered this pack, Starscream was probably the figure that I was least anticipating, but when I got him, I was pleasantly surprised. I believe I mentioned it before a long time ago, but I do prefer the Earthrise Seeker mold to the Siege one. Yes, I'm one of those insane people. I think the Siege figure is better as a toy, but I just prefer what the Earthrise one does. This just works much better for me. I love a chunky Seeker like the animation, and this is much closer to that, and it's also a little lighter on the detail, which I do prefer to the Siege version. The standout pieces of sculpting for me are definitely the wings and the head. They just work way better in my books. But I would never say that it's a perfect figure. That butt flap hanging a little bit too low and the nose cone off the back is kind of an eyesore. The big hollow gaps in the side under the arms, yeah, they're a problem. And some areas of sculpting, like on the wrists, are just a little bit strange. This thing is unfortunately just a fairly compromised mold. But the colours Takara slapped on here really work for me. I thought it looked alright at first, and did appreciate that they've added some red to the inside of the torso panels, but then I stuck it next to Coronation Starscream, and good god, this thing is so much crisper. I don't think my Coronation Starscream is yellowed, I just think it's always been that kind of off-yellow shade of grey, and I really appreciate just how bright and lively this version of the figure is. The red and blue are beautiful, slightly pale, but really intense shades, and the bony grey throughout the whole figure just speaks to me, and all the painted detail is really crisply applied. Love that. The only thing I'm really worried about here is that all of the red on the figure is painted, and it's not the most durable stuff in the world. There are some paint chips around the transformation joints. It is fairly durable paint, but anywhere that it has to scrape past itself in that conversion seems to be failing a little bit. If you get your hands on this guy, then just be careful with the red sections. Now, accessory-wise, Starscream comes with his null rays, which are nothing too special, they're just the bog standard ones. But he also gets the coronation treatment, so there's a couple of alternate null rays which can attach to these gorgeous shoulder pads. Of course, his cape, which can bifold to spread out a little bit more, and the crown. And all of it plugs onto him, and does look really good. I'll admit I do miss the pinkish shade that the old cape had, but I'm not going to complain about this being an addition to the set. He just looks so much more grand with it. But unfortunately, the major place where this figure falls behind is in the posability. The head is on a really good ball joint with a lot of wiggle room. The shoulders can move out standardly, but they can't go all the way around because the wings can't move far enough out of the way. There's bicep swivels, pretty good elbows, nothing at the wrists, but the hands can open and close. Nothing at the waist, unfortunately. You can move the monoskirt out of the way to get access to the hips going not very far out and not very far forward and back. That's a problem. There's thigh swivels, decent knees, and some okay ankle pivots. Yeah, this figure falls behind hard in the posing department. He's not massively limited, but he's just so far behind by being a upscaled retool of the old classic Seeker mold. You can get a couple of decent poses out of him, especially once you stick him on a stand and get him in the air, but realistically, this is far behind the standard that we hold in the modern day. He is very solid though, so that's a point in his favour. And the transformation is actually not bad. You can definitely tell it's an old deluxe transformation, it's very simple, but I don't hate the process at all. I really enjoy getting everything flipped around and closed up in the chest, and then the legs are just easy, and they leave you with an alt mode I really genuinely like. I know people are divided on this jet mode because it's not proportionately accurate to an F-15, but I really enjoy everything that's going on here. I love how arrow-shaped it is, it's really dynamic, it expands out in size by a lot. The clean top profile just really does it for me. And yes, the underside isn't perfect, but I've seen worse. Now, this alt mode doesn't have a great deal of difference to that original Coronation Starscream, but there is one big thing. They've added the stripes on the tail fin, which is a nice plus, but I'm not sure I really like the look that they've gone for with them. You know, that two-striped look, it seems a little much in my books. It's alright, but I do prefer the Earthrise direction. But I do feel the need to say that this new version has one big flaw in the alt mode. The underside ports on the wings are a little bit too big now, and they can't fit the null rays properly, so they just fall out. Now personally, I don't tend to display my Seekers in alt mode with the null rays attached, but I know many people do, and this will annoy some people. But Starscream overall is a decent figure, but he is not the standout from this pack, which is why I've talked over him so quickly. I mean, come on, surely in the triple takeover pack, the triple changes would be the standout. Blitzwing is by far my favorite looking figure from this box set, and is easily the biggest upgrade to his original version. That Legacy release was alright in my books, but it had some really big problems, and the purple never worked for me. But this release takes everything that was good about that figure's robot mode, and amplifies it drastically. This was always a nice looking figure in robot mode. The sculpted detail and proportions are immaculate. I love the utilitarian feet, the slightly rounded off shins, the beautiful boxy thighs with all of that sculpted detail on them. That chest block is one of the best looking features this figure has, integrating such an animation accurate version of that kind of hybrid Seeker chest. The arms are also a dead ringer for the animation, although there is a little bit of clumsy paneling around the forearms. The treads and wing details over the shoulders look really good, at least from the front, and they don't look terrible from the back, although you can see that the wings are faux parts there. And then the head is amazing. The sculpt is really great, all the details are there. The only thing I'd say is the face looks a little bit too passive. I feel like he could use a little bit of a sneer or something. But yeah, all the detail on this guy is just superb, and the proportions knock it out of the park. And then the colors, oh my god, the colours. I said a moment ago that I'm not a massive fan of the colours on Legacy Blitzwing. That purple was just way too dark, way too bleak, and it devoured all of the detail. But this release really perfects that purple. All of that beautiful detail is on show. It's so vibrant and lively. There's a lot more personality to the shades of tan and purple this guy is carrying. And there's so much extra painted detail, all of the parts on the chest, the grey blocks over the wings. It's all just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I'm also a huge fan of the fact that the whole body is matte finishes but the face is silver. I've not really seen that done quite so much, and it really works here. I just love the way that this robot mode looks. And the accessories do exactly as much as they need to. The figure still has his soft plastic sword, which has some great sculpting and paintwork on it. It really does look great in his hand. And he still comes with the two identical blasters of the Legacy version, which they're a little bit hollow, but the shape of them is really nice. And once again, they look great in his hand, or there are specific spots in the back where they can mesh in. That's nice. But the quality of the accessories wouldn't mean a thing if he can't strike a pose with them. But fortunately, he can. The head is on a really good ball joint that is slightly limited by the sculpt. The shoulders can move out standardly and they can move forward, but they can't go back at all, which really annoys me. He's got bicep swivels, pretty deep elbows, wrist swivels, there's a waist swivel. The hips go out to the side pretty standardly, and if you move the waist flaps out of the way, then they can go forward and back really far. He has thigh swivels, really good knees, and some good ankle pivots. Yeah, the posing here is pretty unrestricted all round, apart from the shoulders. I really wish they could move a little bit more, but I'm not too mad about it. And the big thing that I really enjoy here, all of the joints are perfectly toleranced. Everything here moves with enough tightness to support the figure, but it feels really buttery smooth. One of the big problems that I had with the Legacy figure was some of the joints were a little bit too tight, and because of that, it was really difficult to get him standing consistently. You know, he'd rock back and forth, or the arms would be difficult to pose. I get none of that with this figure. It's an absolute breeze. And the transformation into tank mode is much of the same. It is a fairly complicated process with a lot of parts that are moving around themselves. There's a fair amount of steps to it, but nothing feels overly intricate, and I really enjoy it. And the tank mode is one that I really like, but it does have one big glaring flaw. Right at the front. Yeah, it's packing. Now, I don't personally mind this, but I do get why it annoys some people. Yeah, they were going for G1 accuracy, but ended up giving this alt mode superfluous kibble, but I tend to look past it and just see how great the rest of this tank mode is. The body of the tank is like a brick. It's so solid and consistent all the way across. I love all the detail in the treads, the sculpted detail on the sides. The turret is gorgeous, and I love the way that it flips around to expand out the cannon barrel. The turret is one of the most functional ones in recent memory, being able to spin all the way around, and then the cannon individually raises. Age of the Prime's Megatronus could learn a thing or two from that, actually. Reviews coming next week. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this tank mode. I am not a big fan of the jet mode though. The transformation to get here feels like it's taken everything that worked from the tank one and cast it aside to create a clashy, unsatisfying mess. The big offender here are the shoulder pads, they just don't like tabbing in. And then with the jet mode, do I really have to explain why I think this isn't good? Okay, I'll give it some credit. The actual profile of the jet looks really good from the top. All of the purple sections look really cohesive, and I love the fact that they've added those grey lines along the top. They just give it a little bit more synergy. And while yes, all of the tan portions on the underside are supposed to be ignored, you can't really when they're so obtrusive. I wish these could have flattened out in some way or another, but as they are, this doesn't look very good. The landing gear can't even reach the ground past the kibble. That is a f***ing joke. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this alt mode at all. I really like the tank mode, and this just feels like such a letdown. But you know, if the excellent robot and satisfying tank mode were at the cost of having a slightly shitty plane mode, I can't complain too much. I'm just glad that the engineering for triple changes since this mold came out has improved a little. But in the hierarchy of this pack, Blitzwing stands high above Starscream, and is probably my personal favourite of the set, despite the shitty jet. The robot mode with its amazing look and great posing is enough for me, but I will say, Astrotrain is by far the most well-rounded figure in this set. Siege Astrotrain is an all-timer in my books when it comes to fun factor with triple changes, and this release took everything that worked with that and gave it better plastic and colours. While I've admittedly never liked the amount of greebling Siege figures have on them, this mold wears it really well. It's probably the fact that most of the sculpting is localised to the torso and arms, and then the shins and wings are allowed to breathe on their own. And all of that sculpting does feel a lot more intentional than other Siege figures. I love the boxy chest with the line down the middle splitting it in two, and the little wing details on the waist. The arms look fantastic with their little purple spots. The head sculpt is absolutely impeccable, and it really reminds me of the Skybound design actually. The thrusters on the back, while they are a little small, look superb, and the silhouette of the figure is just undeniable with the high collar, massive rounded wings, and huge shins. I love the look of this robot mode. And the colours are such a huge improvement over the Siege version. There aren't really many accents that weren't there before. All of the battle damage on the shins was left out to give him a much cleaner look, and instead of that greenish grey that he had, they instead used this much paler grey, which did take me a moment to get used to, but once I did, I now infinitely prefer that over the dark and bland shade that they went for with the Siege version. And every other colour has had the saturation boosted so much. The purple is much more vibrant, the yellow stands out a little bit better, all of the black that was there before is now gone, replaced with more purple. I have no complaints at all about the deco changes to this guy, they worked fantastically in my books. And while the new paint job isn't quite as beautifully intricate as Blitzwing's, it is still gorgeous. Now accessories wise, this figure's taken a step back from the tender that he previously had, and instead just comes with 3 of the guns out of it. He comes with the large rifle, which is pretty well sculpted but quite hollow, and then the 2 smaller rifles that are mirrored to each other. These all look pretty good in his hands or on his wrists or wherever you choose to plug them, but I can't help but miss that old minigun. I suppose his big blaster is probably the closest to his original animation gun, but the tender on the Siege figure was a fun addition, and one I do find myself missing a little bit here. Now, the posing on this mold was never the best in the world, but it does exactly what it needs to. There's a really good ball joint at the head, the shoulders can go out a little bit substandardly just because of the point of them, but they can go all the way around if you angle the wings back. There's bicep swivels, really good double elbows, nothing at the wrists. There's a waist swivel, the hips can go out pretty standardly, and they can't really go back that far, but they can go forward really far. There's thigh swivels, decent knees which are way too high up, and so-so ankle pivots. This figure doesn't pose badly by any means necessary. It is limited by the proportions in some regards, and the lack of wrists is pretty annoying, but it does everything it needs to. It's not nearly as limited as Starscream is. And he's a little bit more solid than Blitzwing is too. He doesn't have that well lubricated feeling that Blitzwing has, but his joints are a lot firmer. There's a couple of points on Blitzwing where the transformation joints don't tab in, and there's nothing like that on Astrotrain. He's just a much more well-rounded figure in terms of the feel. And I do really appreciate that. This figure is just a solid brick of a thing. The transformation to train mode is a process that I'm a big fan of as well. It's very satisfyingly clicky to get everything snapped into place. Fitting the arms into place and wrapping the wings around them, rotating around the shins, it's all a very interesting thing, and I quite enjoy it. I will say though that sliding down the front wheels for the train is a little bit difficult on my copy. That might just be a me thing though. And the train mode is okay. It feels an awful lot more like an approximation of a train than it does a train itself. There's some big steps in the proportions, the front is a lot smaller than the rest of the train is. There are a lot of details that I really appreciate though. I love the cab in the back with the little yellow windows. The thingies on the side, I'm not a train guy, I don't know the anatomy. They're really well sculpted in, and I love that all the wheels underneath it are real and functional. And the front of the train with that floodlight on top looks really nice. And I'm really glad that it's one consistent color all the way across like Galaxy Shuttle is. The Siege version had some grey and black popping up throughout, and it really broke up the look. But this version looks a lot better than that did. And then transformation to shuttle mode is basically undoing half of the train conversion. The only thing that's really new to it is just unplugging and tabbing in the tail fin. I can't say I love this mode. I do think it's better than Blitzwing's jet mode, but there is quite a bit wrong with it. The front half is a little bit too bulbous, and the back half is a little bit too slim and and gappy. I do think the darker shades of the Siege version hid those gaps better, but I don't feel quite as hateful to this as I did other third modes. Although I do wish either of these flight modes had stand compatibility, god damn it guys. And overall, Astro Train is definitely the most well-rounded figure of the set. He's the most playable by a long shot. Don't get me wrong, I love the way Blitzwing looks, and because of that he's probably my personal favourite, but Astro Train is a nice touch. And overall, I do think this set might be my new favourite of the Dramatic Capture subline. The character choices just surprised me so much, and they've done them so much justice. These are gorgeous, gorgeous repaints, and I honestly think it's probably the most worthwhile for the price. Every single one of these figures originally retailed as a leader, and it's excluded a couple of the accessories from each. But if you consider that, this is £45 less than it would have been to get all of the figures individually. And even if you're considering them as Voyagers, you're only paying about a £10 premium upcharge. If you don't have any of these characters, I would absolutely recommend this set. Even with 86 Astro Train coming next year, that figure may well be an all-new mold that puts this version to shame, but until then, this is a really solid pack. That Blitzwing's probably the best one that I've ever seen at Chug. If you're after 86 Skywarp and Thundercracker next year, this Starscream will probably fit in with them really well. And even if not, I think this is a well worthwhile purchase. But what do you guys think? Leave it down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like, and subscribe to stay tuned as we finally delve into Age of the Primes. Or maybe check out my Patreon to see the Megatronus review early. It's all up to you. I'm actually gonna go get that thing down from the shelf right now. So much fun. Ciao!